In 1944, Lydia Lebovic was a normal 16-year-old teenager living in Hungary, and her life was turned upside down with the arrival of Hungarian soldiers who were there to do the bidding of Hitler's Third Reich. Lydia was stripped of her home, her dignity, and her family. She and her family were forced into ghettos, herded into train cars, and ultimately taken to the notorious Auschwitz death camp in Poland, and later to Bergen-Belsen. Today, she's an activist and a public speaker, working tirelessly to make sure that the world never forgets about the Holocaust. We are fortunate to have her tell her story in her own words, in person, so I'm not going to take up another moment of her time. This is Lydia Lebovic. Let's give her a good welcome.
Thank you very much. You applaud me before you know how I do and what I tell you, right? Thank you. The introduction about me was correct, but it was 86 years ago. I was born in Czechoslovakia. My mother and father had 4 children. I had an older sister, 1 older brother. I was the middle child, always the trouble child, and my baby sister, who was 3 years younger. We lived a very simple, normal life. There was not too much, but enough for us to live a beautiful life. This went on until I became 16. When I became 16, 2 months later, we had the great honor to get an occupation by the German army, with all the preparations and with all the thoughts in their mind just to kill us. The moment they occupied our city, somehow they hated what they were talking about, in and out, day and night, did such an impact, was so strong and so terrible, that my best friend, my childhood friend, who lived next door to us, who was not Jewish, next day when I met her on the street, she came toward me, and instead of saying hello, she just spit straight at me, and because it wasn't enough, she also kicked me. And naturally, I started asking, what happened to you? What did I do to you that you behave like this? Her straight answer was, the Germans taught me about you. So it was German propaganda, like everybody knew it. After the occupation, things started coming on daily basis. First, if you know, you probably saw it and you know about it, the yellow star. We had to wear the yellow star no matter what. It was terribly bad punishment. If they found you without a yellow star, knowing you were Jewish, you got beaten terribly. After the yellow star, curfew. After the curfew, we were not allowed in any theater, any movie, any public place. We're not allowed to us. And this went on about for 5 to 6 weeks. After that, we were told we're going to be, there was a very famous word the German invented in those days. They called us relocation. Anytime they would do something different to us, they would say, we're going to relocate you. We didn't know what it meant, but we had to accept it. The truth that the relocation was, we were told, pack 20 kilos, which is about 40 pounds, clothing, food, and some bedding, and some this and some that. And we were assigned a day, one day we were going to be taken to the ghetto. We were ready. One German and one Hungarian policeman came to our house, and we were ready to leave when the German said to my mother, before you leave, you have to give me the key of the house. This house is not yours anymore. And actually my mother pulled out a key from her pocket, with tears in her eyes. This was her home. This was her paradise with her children. But she gave the key, and we started marching. The railroad station was closed. The lumberyard was closed, and that's where we were taken. First to the lumberyard, that became our ghetto. The lumberyard had one building, one and only building with regular roof. Everything else was carport. The carport became our home. I don't have to tell you what it is to live day and night on the open. April was the month, and it was quite rainy. So we had rain in the daytime, sometime day at night. We had to cook. We had to cook it. There was no other way. From the ghetto, we were again being relocated, and this time we were marching to the railroad station, which was about 15 minutes from the ghetto. When we got to the railroad station, we realized that everything has changed even there. The regular trains became cattle cars. They were lined up. I cannot tell you. I thought that our little station grew by size, so they can put all these cars in there. Everything was a shock. I lived there for 16 years without any changes, and now everything is going upside down. There was fear, they were crying, people were really not sure what their life is going to become. As we walked into the railroad station, the railroad car had a ramp in the front to the entrance, and as we were coming, it's the same way they were pushing us into the railroad car. Young, old, crippled, some women pregnant, some breastfeeding. A horrible, horrible sight. They pushed us into this car until they reached the number 7 up to 80. I don't know if you can imagine or you have in your mind how a cattle car looks, how big it is. I can tell you only one thing. There was no sitting. There was no sitting room. And especially the mothers were instructing their children, remain standing, remain standing, remain standing, so the old people can sit down. After all, we have to have feeling. And there were others who had to sit down, crippled ones. The sight was horrible, and because of it, one thinks, and you all of a sudden you realize that nothing good is in our way. Before we started out, 2 Germans came to the door, each one with a bucket, and handed it to one of the people who were inside, saying, "This is going to be your bathroom for 3 days," with a great German accent. I don't know if I can explain or you can imagine 3 buckets for 3 days journey with 80 people. It was a nightmare. Every time one of us would try to go to that so-called bathroom, the others were trying to stand in line, forming a fall, just not a wall to cover us. Of course, they did cover us, but after hours and after hours, they could not cover the odor in that wagon. And this was 1944, the most civilized, the most intelligent, educated, everything the best, the German nation. Everybody in Europe, you looked up to them. Everybody in Europe who wanted to make schooling were dreaming of the university in Germany. It is hard to tell, it's hard for you to believe that a nation with this kind of description would treat a fellow citizen, or not citizen, just a fellow man, woman, in the same way they did. And this was only the beginning. After the first station, my mother looked out. She wanted to see which is the little city we are standing on, what is the name of it. She used to travel with the whole family to Poland, where my father came from, and his mother and family lived there, so we traveled as a family every year to Poland for summer vacation. As she looked out, this time she came back with tears rolling down her face, and she kind of gathered us, 4 of us, around her and started talking to us, to tell us, to prepare us for the worst. But she has been getting correspondence from Poland, and she knew that the Jewish persecution in Poland started in 1941 already and was going on strong. And I was the middle child, and I was the rebel. She pointed at me and she said, "I'm going to talk to you now. You are the rebel. You are so selfish. You know I have to make a living for 4 of you. Every time I ask you for help, you refuse. You have always 10,000 other things to do, never me." And I felt like a horrible, but that was the truth. I had my entertainment. The boys were waiting for me outside, And the movie, and this, it was natural that I didn't want to do those dishes, I didn't want to clean, I didn't want to help her. So she said, remember, obey, you will have to have a lot of strength to survive, but I want you to survive so you can tell me once we get home again and meet again, all what you did. Remember my words. Then and today is different. Then I didn't believe what she was telling me 100%. Today I know that if I survive Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, it was because I did want to tell her that I behaved. I wanted to be once at least right and good. Unfortunately, the occasion was not given to me to talk to her or to tell her. After 2 days of voyage, you could hear more and more crying in the wagon. After 3 days of 3 days of the journey, we arrived to Auschwitz. It was dark. It was a custom of the German army and everything and everybody who had to do with the Holocaust to make sure that the trains to Auschwitz would arrive in dark. They were trying not to give the shock to a whole 30 or 40 wagon people to see what's going on, to see what a concentration camp is. We have heard the name, but we never knew what it was. Finally, we got into Auschwitz. It was dark. The only thing we could see, miles long of barbed wire and the lights on top. At that time we did not know that the barbed wires beside the light had also electricity in them. It was the best suicidal place for anybody who wanted to die on his own. After a while, striped uniforms, inmates came to the trains and started pushing everybody out from the wagon, reminding us we cannot take any of our belongings. We had to leave all behind. What we had on us, that's what we had. We were taken out from the wagon, pushing, kicking, and finally lined up 5 abreast. I was holding my mother. This time I was sticking to her like glue. My little sister on the other side. Immediately my brother was separated from us because they were columns, only woman, and the next one, only man. And as we were marching toward the side where all the SS were waiting for us, for the so-called selection line. This was the name of the first arrival to Auschwitz. As we walked and we got to their site, they were checking everybody. Oh, by the way, I have to correct myself. In Auschwitz, my older sister was not with us. She remained in the ghetto to take care of the old and sick, which was the last transport, so she was separated from us. As we got to the SS, they looked at us, top to toe, and they came closer to me. grabbed my arm, yanked away from my mother, pushed me aside, and then immediately pushed my mother aside, my little sister. And as we were separated, one went to the left, one went to the right. That was the last time I saw them. Little did I know that the site was life, or gas chamber. There was no other alternative. I was, for my age, quite developed, strong, tall. I was chosen for life, where my mother and my little sister were chosen for death. She was skinny, not strong. My mother was heavy. Of course, they no good for work. They cannot give work for the German Reich. Little did I know what it is. Little did I know about gas chambers. And in my dream, I would have never dreamt that the smoke going up in the air from the huge tall chimney is not a bakery. It's a crematorium where they were just about doing their job, cremating everyone who was gassed just recently. It was a factory. And if you think that this again was done by the highly intelligent, highly educated German, premeditated everything, every step. This was Auschwitz. I know you heard about Auschwitz. I know. Auschwitz was the camp which was called the extermination camp, and with all the rights, no matter how much the deniers in the world say it's not. There were 5 crematoriums. The only mistake they made is that it was not Auschwitz where the crematoriums and the gas chambers were. It was called Birkenau. It was in Auschwitz, but it was Birkenau. After I left beside my mother and my sister, we were told to march, again 5 abreast, down about 5 to 6 steps, and we were getting in to an underground, like a bunker, a room. The room was size at least of a football field, huge. We were just pushed in. The room was prepared for a lot of people. But I understood, and what I learned later on, 600 to 800 people in one room. We were all standing while the SS walked in on us, started screaming. They learned how to scream in all languages, so we make sure that we understand what they say. Get undressed, get undressed, get undressed. And the lows, there was that lows is their favorite word. It means nothing, but it means hurry up. And actually, I have to tell you, I was 16, I was never undressed before a man, and everybody felt the same way. How can I get undressed when these people, these men, are walking between us? But once the whip started going on our body, we did get undressed. And we were told to take a seat on the benches, on the stools, on the chairs in the room. Each woman who was there got one seat. It lasted 2 minutes, the door opened, and the whole group of inmates in uniforms and again a bucket in their hand, walked into the room. We didn't know what it was for. You know, you are so unsecure with all this happening. You are like a dummy. You don't know what's going on. You don't know who you are. You don't know what's next. So we just like dummies stood there and wait. Finally they made us sit down, and each one of the inmates who walked into the room would pick out one person where she had to stand next. Why? Because she was the barber. Hair. She started on our hair. Then on the arm, and then everything else. And 2 seconds later we were bald-headed, naked, human. I don't think we were human. And 2 seconds later she checked out everybody, and then she just grabbed the sponge from the bucket, put it up upon our hair and squeezed it. Because we were the dirty Jews, they were disinfecting us. She squeezed chlorine solution on our head, and that chlorine started running face all the way through on your body. Oh my God, I feel the feeling. It was so hot, burning like hell, through your face, through your body. Finally, when it got down, it was the end. We had to get up, get to march toward the door. And as we were marching, they reached out and gave us a uniform. A gray sheet dress was our uniform, and that was it. No panty, no bra. We kept our shoes and we kept our socks. And we started marching toward our barrack. Can we use it now? The picture?
It's up.
Okay.
It's up. It's behind you. Already up.
Okay. I don't know if you can see. I won't stand in your way. This is the group coming out from the bed. That's me. If you can't recognize me, I don't blame you. But check one thing. Look at my hairline. Right there. And look at my face. I was so mad that I could have killed the German who was taking pictures. You know, with my 16 years vanity, I was so mad that he had the right and he had the guts to take pictures of me in this kind of uniform and this kind of looks. Typical 16. From here, we marched into the barrack, which became our home. If I remember right, it was 1,200 girls. We couldn't sit like this. We didn't have enough room to sit like that. We had floor, and then wood, and then floor, and then wood, all kinds. That was all bedding. They fit 8, 9, sometimes
Please pardon the
11.
interruption. Will the members of the 7th grade girls volleyball please come down, as well as the soccer members? Thank you.
sometimes they squeezed on the piece of wood, not wider, 8 to 9 people. And the fun part was, at night, when we wanted to turn around to another side, somebody had to call out, "Now let's turn." All of us had to turn to the same side because otherwise we wouldn't have where to stay. It was so small. Auschwitz itself was the largest camp. It was Poland or Hungary or Germany. As far as number, by the end of the war, and they had so many coming in from everywhere, Auschwitz had 137,000 people in captivity. A complete city. I consider myself a lucky one because I remained in Auschwitz only 6 weeks. The 6 weeks are horrible, not because of the work, not because of the food, it was very little, not because the wires around you and you know there is electricity, every depressing thing, it wasn't that. It was that they did not send us to work. We were selected to be sent to Germany, but we had to wait on turn. Every single day we were chased out from the barrack where we slept, if you can call it sleeping, slumber. Then we will be outside, cold. Poland in May is still very cold, especially 4:35 o'clock in the morning. I will tell you the story. What is the most beautiful thing in Auschwitz? If it happens, you don't see people smile. It's always gloomy. We would sit for hours. We would sit on the ground and talking to each other. And all our talk was home, mother, father, sisters, but mainly because our stomach was so empty and we were so hungry from the little coffee in the morning and nothing else. We were talking about food. You remember, I would say to the other one, you remember when our mother used to make such and such and such, and the pastry, and you remember when we used to go stealing fruit from the trees in the spring, and all these little things which had no meaning a year ago, now became the story of our lives. Now became something that gave us some satisfaction. We smelled the smell of the food. We could taste the taste of the fruit. And we would just look at each other and cry and cry and cry. These were the hardest things. This lasted six weeks. After 6 weeks, we were called again, the same 800 women, we were called again. And this time, completely naked, on the street, on the Camp Street, when people come and go, we were lined up before the SS, all doctors, white, uniforms, pen and pencil in their hand, and we had to come close to them. They would get up and walk around each woman. They were checking our skin, if we have any rash. They were checking our belly, if it's not growing. just in case there are some of us pregnant. And then if there is some deformity on your body, this was all checked out and very carefully put on paper, name, Hungary, the place we are from, and age. And that meant next day in the morning we got a new uniform, away with a gray dress, and we got a clean overall. We were like kids. We were so happy to have an overall. Until Hamburg. Hamburg is one of the big cities, a port in Germany, and because it was completely bombed out, this was the crew, us, 800 women who is going to be working on the reconstruction of the city. We were to clean up all the debris, every single brick to be cleaned, and so on and so on. We got some food, extra food, because the work was very hard. In the morning, 12 o'clock, we were expecting the American Air Force. They were coming to bomb. And every time the American Air Force came to bomb, we were dancing. Every bomb that fell on the city, it was our hope, one day closer to liberation. 8 o'clock at night, lights were out. The RAF, the British Air Force, came into Hamburg at night with bombs, phosphorus bombs. You never seen a most beautiful sight in the sky. These bombs lit at night when they were coming down. And those lighter, when they hit ground or buildings, they go on fire. So it was unbelievable. And we locked out in our group. We had a Czechoslovakian girl, Lasta Power, who was a poetess. And she would stand in the window, and as she was standing in the window, she would make poetry. She would make poetry of the destruction of Germany and our liberation. How we're going to be when we're going to be liberated. What we're going to do when we're going to be liberated. Poor thing. She never made liberation. Hamburg was a working camp. And as hard as we worked, our commander, Walter Kümmel, about 45, he was an SS Sturmführer, which is a quite high-ranking SS. But this man, I don't know how they prepared him, how they drilled him in his SS school, because this man, being an SS, he had some heart left, a little piece of heart in him was still working. The first story was, I became 17 in January, and because my cousin was with me, she knew the date, and she saw the date sometime outside on the wall or on the paper.
Second call for 7th grade volleyball players and soccer players. Please come down to the multi-purpose room.
She knew my birthday, and she wanted to celebrate. In that camp we had only 16 of us in one room with one bed. So it was a much, much better camp. And she prepared us so nicely for me. When everything was quiet, the hour of quiet was on. She said, let's sing happy birthday for Lida. I was then Lida. You know, Czech different. And And I said, what are you doing? You crazy. You're gonna get caught. No, they sang happy birthday and they walked out with a cake. Now this is the cake that you never ate. There is no cooking, there is no baking, there is nothing for you in a camp. But she managed to get a piece of black, like your sweater, fine, bread from each one of the 15 and put it together. The frosting was the very little marmalade and margarine what we had with it. So they made a cake. How high can it be? And on top, the frosting was the marmalade, which was a piece, little piece of red beets. No marmalade, no sugar, no nothing, but it has sugar. Because the beets has so much sugar that kept us alive. So we all of us had our cake. After that, somebody was knocking on the door. Mr. Walter Kummer, who oversaw the SS, our commander, walks in. And what's going on? And because it was my birthday, I took the courage. I was really literally shaking from fear. But I told him, it is my birthday today, 17, and the girls made a little party for me. And he looked around, turned around, and left. After he left, that was the real party because we didn't get nothing. We had cake, but no 25 on the back, no beating, no punishment, nothing. So we were lucky until he came back again, and this time we were even luckier. He walked in, straight to me, and he handed me an apple. This is for your birthday. And I didn't know even how to think. I was so stunned. Took it away, and I didn't know what to do. He left, and I said, okay, now get a fork, get a knife. The girl got a knife and started cutting one apple in 16 pieces. Have you ever tried to do that? No, nobody ever did. We had 60 pieces of apple, and we were chewing on it like a lollipop. It has been 9.5 months in Hamburg. We never saw any little fruit. So it was a real birthday for 16 people. How this man was what he was, I don't know. But he showed that he was not a monster, that he was a human being in certain instances. The next one was, in the camp, there was a girl or a lady, she was married, and I think she had 2 children. She had a problem. She got into Auschwitz being pregnant. However, nobody noticed it on her. No German realized that she was pregnant because it was very premature. By the time the 7th, 8th month came, she knew that she won't be able to go out to work, the hard work we were doing. She decided to confront the SS and tell him the truth. Normally, if this happens in any other, or in any other camp, they would have taken her away to a camp or to any concentration camp with a gas chamber. If not gas chamber, anybody just with a pistol killed her, and that was it. This man told her, okay, as long as you told me, I will keep you in the camp. You're not going out to work with the commandos. You're staying in the camp, and from this day you will do all the repairs on the overall stairs or whatever they needed, buttons, so you can keep in the camp busy. When the day comes, I will put you into the first emergency room, and we'll see what's going to happen. Sure enough, the day came, she was put in, she had a boy. The German SS did not enter the room while she was in labor and while she had the baby. The nurse who was taking care of her was a girl of our own. After the baby started crying, my very dear friend, Judy Rothman, was on call. He called her in, and she said, go to the kitchen, get me a bucket of hot water. Judy brought in the hot water into the emergency room, gave it to the SS. The SS grabbed the baby. This we found out later from the nurse, put the baby in the hot water and drowned her. And that was it. The mother naturally was beside herself. When we found out, the whole camp cried. And then one of us, I don't know who it was, a smart woman said, do not cry. He saved a life. That baby didn't know anything about fear. That baby didn't know anything about life yet. So he will not grow. He's dead, but his mother is alive. At least she got a chance to live. And the beautiful thing was, she did liberate in Bergen-Belsen. She did go home to Hungary. She found her husband, immigrated to Israel when Israel was born, and had 2 more boys. So this is a horrible story, but such a beautiful story, that it really saves her life to have more children. It's very, very odd. I didn't stay too longer after that in Hamburg. The next, again, the cattle car. We were shipped out from Hamburg to the place which was called Bergen-Belsen. I call it hell on earth. It was such a different, it was so much different from Hamburg. When we walked into the camp, there were skeletons on the floor like you never imagine. Anyone who was still walking, maybe 5 or 10 minutes more, would drop dead. The typhus was taking a toll, tremendous toll on the people. We didn't have running water, we didn't get food, we didn't get medication, and it was just a horrible sight. I think as far as Bergen-Belsen was just horrible. For me, Bergen-Belsen was my miracle. I was walking on the street to find where I'm going to sleep. We didn't have a sign, and all of a sudden somebody called my name or something similar. And she said to me, Alfreda's sister, are you? And I said, yes, I am. What are you doing here? I said, I just got here from Hamburg on a new transport. And she goes, oh my God, do you know your sister is here? So I said, no, I don't know. Which one? The young one or the old one? No, the old one. She was my friend at home. And I said, so let's go, let's find her. I was so excited. And she's talking to me and finally grabbed my hand and we were going toward the barrack where my sister was. And when we got in, I look at you guys. This is exactly the way the barrack looked. With the difference, they lived in rags. They had no hair, no strength, no pink cheeks. Half of them were dead. They couldn't get up. They didn't have food for the second week at all. No food whatsoever. The German decided that anyone who can walk, get your ration at the kitchen door, bring your bowl and you're going to get your soup. However, you can't walk, you can't go to the kitchen for the soup. And that was with my sister. So she walks with me and we go, she's there, she's there. So finally I see the face, but I'm not even sure if it's her. And I don't know what to do. She doesn't get up to greet me. What should I do? So I go and I go on my knees toward her and grab her and hold her back. And as I hold her back, that's the way my tears were running with it, because all I felt, bone, pure bone. The odor was horrible. So I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we looked at each other, and she said, "My God, sister, where were you?" And I said, "In concentration camp." "And you look this good after concentration camp?" I was still clean. I had no rags on me. I had my overalls. My hair was already growing, you believe it or not. It was like Shirley Temple, full of... And she kept looking at me. And finally she said, "You can walk. As you can tell, you can hear. All the artillery around Bergen-Belsen is shooting at us. We've got to get the liberators in. You have to walk to that kitchen, get us soup, so we can be liberated." And I said, "Yes, I can walk. Give me your bowl and I will go." And I went every morning to the kitchen, to the German kitchen where the Germans were giving up the food, and stand in line, and stand in line 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours. You weren't hungry anymore after standing, but I stood. It was an order from an older sister. So 2 weeks by, and all of a sudden, one day, I go out on the lamp, on the ground, on the concentration camp, and I see the doors. Actually, they're not doors. They're huge gates. The gates between the camps, the ladies' camps, the gypsy camp, the men's camp, and so on and so forth, the separation. And I see the door open, the gate open, and all of a sudden I see the camp, the tank coming toward me. And the British soldiers are on it, not the German. And I was so crazy, I was so full of life all of a sudden. I went against the tank, jumped on it, and because they're not sitting inside, because they were sitting outside, I could kiss him. The poor man didn't know what happened to him. Am I crazy or something? And the few words I knew English, I think I said, thank you. And I ran back to the barrack, and I go to my sister and I tell her, we are liberated. Just stay here, stay here. As long as the barracks are here, and as long as the gates are open, I'm going to walk and try to find relatives, try to find my brother, try to find somebody. As I found you, I'm going to find somebody. And that's why I call it my miracle. Because I went from barrack to barrack, call out my brother's name, my cousin's name, in Hungarian, in Czech, in Polish, in German, whatever. So they know I really mean business. And all of a sudden, somebody from the back said, he sleeps under me. So I started running, not walking, I started running, and I get to the bunk bed, and I don't see anybody there. So I said to him, hey, what is it? You said he's here. And he looks at me and starts laughing. Yes, he is here, not on the bed. He went looking for his sisters in the ladies' camp. And we had a good laugh, and I left immediately back to my ladies. My sister, sure enough, before I got to the door, to the entrance, they were sitting, and I don't know where my brother got a hold of bread. He was feeding her. Oh, so since then I call it my Bergen-Belsen miracle. And now comes the sauerkraut. We have to have some left. The Germans, right in the middle of our camp, had a barn, and I mean a barn, huge barn. The door, naturally, was broken down by the inmates because they knew in that barn is the goodie. All the good German wurst and bread and broad and everything was there for the German SS, for the German people who lived in the camp. And a lot of people were pushing out that huge door, and the one was pushing the other, so we have more force, and like Marlborough country against the door, and all of a sudden this huge gate opens up and we all go in. And as we were pushing in one of each other, because it was a tumult, they were pushing, and all of a sudden I feel that I can go further. I cannot make another step. There is a barrel in front of me. And I look down, and the barrel is full with sauerkraut, the German national food. And I said, oh, I'm the first one. I picked up and I started putting sauerkraut in the bib, sauerkraut in the both pockets, sauerkraut in the back pocket. And now I want to go. No way, Jose. I had 1,000 people on my back waiting to get sauerkraut. So finally I started begging, I started crying, and I said, just let me get out. I give you all the kraut, just let me get out. And finally, I bent over and I started kicking with my leg, and finally they made room and they let me out, and I ran with the sauerkraut to my sister and my brother, and we had a feast. That is my comic side of the concentration camp. But it was good. It helped. After Bergen-Belsen, I stayed in Bergen-Belsen until June because I didn't want to go home. I was afraid to go home. I knew and I didn't know, yes or no, if my mother is alive, if my little sister is alive. according to horrors, according to we have seen, we have little hope. So I volunteered to the British Red Cross. My English from my Hebrew school was pretty good. I could communicate and I could do translation when we started to do IDs for the people who were going home. I stayed there, worked with them. I did a beautiful, beautiful job with 2 Dutch volunteers who were in the British Army as medics. We were helping to save people with typhus who were in the hospital. Sweden offered to Germany, or to the British actually, to take in over 100,000 sick typhus people to Sweden. They sent a ship, we delivered 4 people in a British Red Cross ambulance all the way to Lübeck. In Lübeck they were picked up by the Swedish ship and transferred to Sweden. This helped me to get over the camp year, and after that I went home when I didn't find naturally, not my mother or my little sister. My brother and sister were still in the hospital. I did go into my mother's house. Some strange people were living there. The government gave them our house, and because I didn't find a living soul in it, I was walking out, and I told the guy, I have nothing here to live for. You can keep it. The house is yours. I walked out, never to go back. I wanted the memories what I had of the house, our family life, not the pictures or knickknacks. However, I got a reward. As I was walking out from the house, on the wall in the living room, I saw a penny point which my mother made, and it was still in the frame on the wall. And I thought that I was going to drop dead or faint when I saw it. So I grabbed it, took it out the wall, and I said to the guy, you can keep everything else, but with your permission or not, I'm taking this. And I walked out. After that, my life became normal, or abnormal. I met my husband to be 68 years with the same man. But those were good years. We got married. Then we decided we had to leave Czechoslovakia because the communists were occupying Chile, occupying Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and we didn't want to be under another dictatorship, so we left for Chile. Great country. We lived there for 15 years. We loved it. I don't know why, but the communists loved me and they followed me to Chile. So I had to go away again. And this time our papers for the United States were done, and we came in 1963 to the United States. My daughter was born in Chile, and I have to say I am grateful to Chile and love the country because they were so good to us. Here I had no problem. I came to a new family. My family was here. And whatever I got, I am very happy and very thankful to the United States. I'm thankful to the school district. I'm thankful to all the schools who gave me the opportunity to talk about my life in the camps. First, it alleviates me. Second, I hope that from all what I said, you will get some knowledge what is to be free, what is to have a piece of bread at home, have parents, and live a normal life. Please, please admire that there is such a thing. And be happy. I thank you for listening. This is not an easy story to listen to. Anything you want to know, you want to give me questions, I'll be more than happy. I know sometimes I get confused myself. So
let's first say thank you. So, who's got one?
When the Holocaust first began,
oh, here.
I'll read
do you want to sit, Lydia?
Yeah. Right up those two faces.
When the Holocaust first began, did you ever imagine what it would turn out to be?
No.
Did you hear that?
You have to repeat it.
Okay. She said when the Holocaust started, did you have any idea how it was going to be?
No. No one in their normal mind could imagine what can be done and what was going on. See, news did not travel as fast as it travels today, because in Germany they had already atrocities, had bad life, they had concentration camps, but it did not travel to Hungary. No television, of course, and Hitler made sure to keep his secret a secret. Nobody knew. Otherwise, much more people would have either run to other countries, free countries, and not to stay and wait for what's going to happen. But there was no way. Only way, like my mother knew some of the things, was personal correspondence. Gives you the answer? Okay. Come. Yeah, get up. I cannot get up.
So, what was your motivation? Like, when you were in the concentration camp, how did you not just give up?
Let me ask Tilda. The question was, what motivated or what helped her survive in the concentration camps?
We couldn't have motivation. We knew that you don't have motivation. We had dreams, yes. Dreams you don't give up so easily. And many times you would sit in a group of friends or women and we would talk, oh, we would do this or we would do that. But these were dreams, really. Everything is gloomy and everything is bad. Yep. All right? Okay. More? Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Who comes next? Come here. You come. Hi. No, don't thank me for coming here. Very wise. Because I am thankful that this many young people in a free country where they have all the luxuries that you don't have in concentration camp come to listen to me and learn. So I thank you. Okay, now, that's it? Come here. No?
How did you feel the general attitude of your fellow inmates were? Did they all band together? Were you guys all more content together? Or were some of them just out for themselves? Did the situation force them to be? Or how do I say this?
The prisoners you're talking about?
Yeah.
He's asking, did the prisoners look out for each other, or were they forced to look out only for themselves?
I wish I wish I could have an answer for you. You know, after the war, when I started a normal life, I was hoping, I was only 17, quite dumb as far as politics and all that. But I was hoping so much that this World War II, how it went, and I'm not talking only about a concentration camp, there was a flu. But remember, Britain had a war with Germany, and unfortunately they were quite close. The canal, fly over the canal and you are in England. England lost almost 20 million civilians. 20 million civilians, innocent, who were in the bunkers in the war. And I was hoping that this will never happen again. Beside England, the Russians lost much more because they had casualties at home from the bombing, plus also the whole army. And all the atrocities what they came up with. What about the Fall One, the bomb the German almost developed to annihilate Europe practically. They wanted the final solution was to make Europe completely Jew-free, Judenreich. And after this, after the war, I was hoping we would never see another war again. And look what's happening. Look how many did we have in the United States and around the United States. So here I say to you, if we can, I'm not talking about going against the government. Unfortunately, they're so powerful, we can go against them anyhow. But avoid war if possible. And mainly what I ask, this is my own private line, what I ask, stay away from any hate group. Any, I don't care which one. Hate brings death. It gets further and further in your system and stronger, and it takes over everything good you had. And it takes you and it finishes you off with death. Either you get killed or you want to kill somebody. So, I talk for an hour, did I? Promise me in 1 minute that you listen and you're going to stay away from hate. I was born the same person as you did. My hair is blonde because I bleach it. So we all do, but we are all human. We all come to this world with the same rights, no matter what color eyes. I don't know if you know about it, but 5 more minutes. Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele, was one of the highest doctors in Auschwitz. He was so blind with his German heritage. He thought that the only clean cut, the only top man can be a German. Only a German can be that. Blonde hair, blue-eyed, and all that. That's only the race he wanted. And every other race he was wiping out. He didn't succeed naturally, but he had gathered over 1,000 twins in Auschwitz and started experiments. The experiments did he injected blue dye in the eye of that certain person. And it lasted so long for him to see it catches on or not. In the woman, in the womb, he injected injection for the woman to get pregnant and have twins, not less, but twins. And this is the way he wanted to build the perfect German image and nation. We don't believe in the do we? We want to be equal, no matter what color or what skin. And that's one of the strongest experience from the German ideology.
One more question.
How do you deal with the people that don't believe that the Holocaust actually happened?
I'm fighting. This is my fight.
Let me tell the
I'm
question.
trying to convince you not to listen to them.
The question was, how does she deal with people who say that the Holocaust didn't happen? You want to tell them again? I just repeated the question correctly.
Yeah. And I have the book from one of the denial group. There is one in Germany, one in Austria, you name it, even Canada. I have one book, and after reading, I think, 20 pages, I didn't do it. I had such an urge to get it, either burn it or tear it to pieces, because it was burning my guts out. Such stupid, such unbelievable lies. But there are some people who want to believe it, they believe it. So this is my fight. Your fight is next, after I taught you, if you believe what I said. And the next one and the next one, because the only way, there is something that I have to talk to you about and tell you, which I thought that it was my life after a concentration camp, the most beautiful sentence that I ever heard, and I'm not a killer. The Holocaust Museum in Washington finally won a huge international fight. Germany opened up 10 or 14 years ago an archive with millions and millions of documents of each person they put in jail. The most complete, the most unbelievable archive man ever did. They're capable of it. It's in Bad Arolsen, and anybody who wanted any information of relatives or anything from the Holocaust could get it. But they had to go to Bad Arolsen personally and get into the archive and look for the papers. It is unbelievable, all the documentation they had. The Holocaust Museum in Washington, the Holocaust, the head of the Holocaust Museum started a fight. It went to The Hague to the International Committee, and they were fighting for 7 years. He claimed that the archive with all these documents only on concentration camps, 99% Jews. That archive belonged by right to the Holocaust Museum in Washington. Every year we lost the case. Whoever voted, we lost the case. Last year, I got correspondence all the time. I got a correspondence. We won. We finally won the case. The archive right now is almost fully in Jerusalem and Yad Vashem. They kept their own, naturally, but we got the same copies. But once they put the sentence, we won. There is also one sentence, but I think that I grew, I must have gained weight when I read it. From now on, every time anybody calls in to the Holocaust survivor to get an information about somebody who is unknown where he is, it's going to be a dagger in the denial's heart. Just a dagger. He doesn't have to die.
Everybody, let's please say thank you for the